دیگر سلوات پیاسا رہا جانے نبی ہوائے نہر القما، اٹھتی رہیں موجیں تیری ہوائے نہر القما، وہ خشک لب سوکھا گلا شیر خدا کی آل کا، وہ تیرے ہونٹوں پر تری ہوائے نہر القما، طوفان اٹھانا تھا تجھے یا سوکھ جانا تھا تجھے، کچھ تو نے خدمت ہی نہ کی ہوائے نہر القما، ایک مشک پانی کے لیے عباس کے شانے کٹے، ندی لہو کی بہہ گئی ہوائے نہر القما، ایک چادر آب رواں اوڑے ہوئے تو نوحہ خواں، زینب کیے بے چادری ہوائے نہر القما، اشک سکینہ بہہ گئے منہ دیکھتے سب رہ گئے، تو اور تیری دریا دلی ہوائے نہر القما، یہ کون سا دستور تھا مہمان کتنی دور تھا، کیا پاؤں میں زنجیر تھی ہوائے نہر القما، خیمہ رہے شبیر کا یوں دھوپ میں جلتا ہوا، ساحل پہ ہو فوج شقی ہوائے نہر القما، حسرت کی ایک تفسیر تھی خود تیرے دل پہ تیر تھی، جو موج اٹھی ایسی اٹھی ہوائے نہر القما، آتا ہے اس کو یاد جب وہ کاروان تشنا لب، ہے نجم کا نوحہ یہی ہوائے نہر القما، ہوائے نہر القما صلوات۔
وآل محمد۔ صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے، صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے، دشوار ہوا جینا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے، روٹھی ہے خوشی مجھ سے ہر لمحہ نیا غم ہے، دھڑکن کی صداؤں میں تنہائی کا ماتم ہے. بھیا علی اکبر کی فرقت میں یہ عالم ہے. ہر سانس ہے ایک بھالا، ہر سانس ہے ایک بھالا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. کیا جانیے آتے ہیں کیوں مجھ کو یہ اندیشے، منظر نظر آتے ہیں جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے. رہ رہ کے نہ جانے کیوں گرتی ہے ردا سر سے. کیا حال ہے پھوپھیوں کا، کیا حال ہے پھوپھیوں کا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. رہتا ہے تصور میں چہرہ علی اکبر کا، پھرتا ہے نگاہوں میں جھولا علی اصغر کا. اللہ محافظ ہے اب میرے بھرے گھر کا. گھبراتا ہے دل میرا، گھبراتا ہے دل میرا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. بھیا علی اکبر کا جب بیاہ رچا ہوگا، سوچا نہ کسی نے بھی ہے دور بہت صغرا. حسرت ہے کہ دیکھوں میں بھائی کو بنے دولہا. گوندی ہو یہاں صحرا، گوندی ہو یہاں صحرا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے. کیوں جانے مجھے اکثر آتا ہے خیال ایسا، یوں لگتا ہے جیسے کہ بے پردہ ہے سب کنبہ. اللہ رکھے پردہ زہرا کے گھرانے کا. دل کانپتا ہے میرا، دل کانپتا ہے میرا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ ششماہ میرا بھائی یاد آتا ہے رہ کر، کیا گھٹنیوں چلتا ہے اب میرا علی اصغر، ہو پیار میرا بابا معصوم کی آنکھوں پر، ڈالی ہوں میں گہوارا، ڈالی ہوں میں گہوارا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ کیا آیاس اے رضوی پہنچا ہے خط صغرا، ریتی پہ رکھا شہ نے لاشا علی اصغر کا، رونے لگے بیٹی کا خط پڑھ کے شہ والا، خط میں یہی لکھا تھا، خط میں یہی لکھا تھا، کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ صغرا نے لکھا بابا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ دشوار ہوا جینا کب لوٹ کے آؤ گے؟ الفاتحہ۔
اللهم صل على Allah wa barakatuh. We are gathered here to commemorate the Arbaeen of Abi Abdullah Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Uh, for commemorating this Arbaeen 5-day program, I'm pleased to have our visiting scholar and alim from US, um, Atlanta, Sheikh Sayyid Ali Kulaini will be inshallah with us for the next 5 days. The program of basically the 5-day program of Arbaeen is starting tonight. Will continue until Saturday, which is the Arbaeen day. The program for the first 4 day will be around Maghrib time. Tomorrow we'll start at 7:45, and then Thursday night, day after tomorrow, we'll start 7:15 to have the Shabi Jummah recitation, inshallah, Kumail and Yasin before namaz, and then after namaz, we'll have the Jamaat Salat all the 4 days, inshallah, and the 50 also. And then after Jamaat Salat of Maghrib Isha, we'll have the program and Majlis, inshallah. On Saturday, 7:45 again. Saturday night, I requested Sheikh and he gladly accepted. I'm thankful for that also. For our youth session, inshallah, we'll have. I'll put those details in the email on the newswire, and inshallah more details will be upcoming in the couple of days. So we'll have on Friday night. Saturday is the Arbaeen day. We'll start at Zohar time. We'll have the Jamaat Salah of Zohar together, inshallah. Then we'll have the all the majlis after the Zohar namaz. followed by the Ziyat Arbaeen, and then we have the full Niyaz on Saturday in person in the center. Just to give you a quick recap of the experience we Sheikh carry with him. Sheikh Said basically is born in and raised in New York City. He converted to Shia Islam from Sunni during his teenage, and he completed his Fawza at IMAM Institute for 5 years, which is the completion of the first 5 or the first level of Muqaddamat. And then for higher education, also he's visiting Karbala on regular basis. Sheikh, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sheikh carry a vast experience of throughout the America, different states, for teaching, leading Jummah Salat and Thursday night and the Thursday night Salat and programs. Different states like Louisiana, Florida, Seattle, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, California, Chicago, Detroit, Colorado, Portland, Arizona. And also he's been visiting Canada for some of the programs. Sheikh also have served in education capacity for Islamic school as a principal, and he is also a resident alim. He was a resident alim at Az-Zahra Islamic Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Sheikh has also written multiple articles, and he has written 3 books. If you want more details, I'll try to post it on our newswire, inshallah, and you can contact myself. I can give details about his books and articles, inshallah. And we are so pleased to have Sheikh with you, inshallah. And we are a small community, but we are closely knitted and very dedicated community. Inshallah, you'll have wonderful time here with us. So other announcements as usual. You know, the programs for Muharram will continue until 8th of Rabiul Awwal, right? That's the Muharram is not ending with this Arbaeen, inshallah. So we do have program upcoming later in the Safar and also in the Rabiul Awwal until 8th of Rabiul Awwal. So for any donation, if you want to donate in person, with check, cash, credit, debit, whatever, or if you want to sponsor Niyaz or Tabarruk for a day, you can do whatever you want. Just contact with us, Hasnan Bhai, Maulidina, or myself on ladies side, Sister Bashira, if she is there. You can contact and give details on which day you want to sponsor the Niyaz, so we can arrange accordingly. Otherwise, we have to make sure that Niyaz is served every day, inshallah, or Tabarruk is served every day, inshallah. With that, I will request with your loud salawat for Sheikh Sayyid Ali Kulaini to start his majlis by Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha, please. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام أشرف المرسلين وخاتم النبيين أكمل مجتبى أبي قاسم محمد مصطفى ولا طيبين طائفين لا إله إلا الله جليل الجبار لا إله إلا الله عزيز الغفار لا إله إلا الله واحد القهار لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إله واحدا نحن له مسلمون لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إله واحدا نحن له مخلصون لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إله واحدا نحن له عابدون قال الله تعالى في محكم كتاب عزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صلوات الله. How do we feel if someone leaves us? Let me give an example. Let's say, for instance, that we have a friend that is really close to us, and this friend that we have that's close to us, he or she, they live in our area or maybe even our building. So because of this friendship we had became a bond with one another. So let's say that all of a sudden that one day he or she, they said, well, I am going to move away. Because we have this bond with this person, we don't never want to see them go. So because they are all of a sudden now leaving us, we start to feel a certain way. We start to feel sad. We have some type of remorse because that person, we are no longer going to see them around us. Maybe our distance going to make our friendship lose some type of value, but either way, we feel saddened. It's a natural emotion that we have. We're going to feel this way. But let's say, for instance, that this person, he or she, they pass away. Our emotion is there, but now it's on a greater level. We start to think that now we feel sad, but the sadness is that we no longer be able to hold this person, talk to this person, see this person, eat with this person. All these things are no longer there. So because of this, our sadness turns into something that is called crying. We begin to cry. We will cry because of this sadness. Crying is a natural thing that when we feel some type of sadness, it is a reaction that shows the sorrow that's within our heart. So we cry. Tears come out of our eyes. Now the thing that we have to ask is that we know that crying is something that is natural. Everyone does it. There's no one that's on this earth that does not cry. Especially we as Shia, we cry all the time, right? So we see that, what do Allah says about crying? Do Allah talk about anybody that cries? Is it anything from a Quranic perspective that says or tells us about someone who cried? Or is any history that said that people cried? Are we doing something that is not correct? Because maybe some people may criticize us and say that, oh, you should not cry. Crying is not correct. Maybe. We find that when Prophet Yaqub, when he lost Prophet Yusuf, when he thought he was killed or eaten by the animal, he started to cry until he had went blind. Remorse of the heart. See, this is some type of remorse in which he had in his heart. Natural feeling. So now we as Muslims, we say, okay, we say, oh, Aki, did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, did he cry? Because we find that a lot of people, they feel that, oh, you be crying, but did Rasulullah do this? If it's something that he did, then I am okay with it. Is this a sunnah of Rasulullah? Can we explain that this is? Or we say, well, maybe he did, I don't know. When we look at crying, we should know that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was not exempt from crying. He too cried. We give an example of when he cried is that he had an uncle in which he loved so much, and when his uncle was martyred, he cried. Hamza Shuhada. It was to the fact that they said that Rasulullah cried so much that he fainted because of the remorse and sadness in his heart that he had for his uncle. But is that the only time that Rasulullah cried? They said, oh yes, this might be a fluke. Rasulullah, he only cried this one time. It happens. He was overwhelmed from this remorse and he began to cry. We find that also Rasulullah, he had a son by the name of Ibrahim. And when he passed on, it said that Rasulullah, he cried. We give an example. They said that Ibn Abbas, he said, I went to the house of Rasulullah before Ibrahim has passed. I saw Rasulullah crying. Excuse me. Not only that, they said that Rasulullah also cried for the sons of Zainab. He cried for the death of Kulthum in all these type of situations. So we see that to shed a tear or to cry or to have this remorse in our heart is not only just a human thing, but it's also a practice of Rasulullah. He did cry when he felt remorse where somebody have left us. Something wrong, because when someone leaves, the sadness is very overwhelming. So it's natural for us to cry. We see that Rasulullah did it. And we know that Allah said that he is the best of examples. So by us also crying that we are following the best of examples, I didn't say it, you didn't say it, this is what Allah said. So when Allah says something, it is truth. This is haqq. Maybe I said something, maybe I could believe him, maybe not. Where do you get it from? Allah says he's the best of examples. So if we see Rasulullah cry, we should also cry. We should also cry as well. It's a natural thing. But then we hear some people that say, yeah, we understand that, yes, Allah talks about different prophets, they cried, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam cried, but y'all Shias, y'all different. Y'all cry for Imam Hussein. I don't believe that Rasulullah cried for Imam Hussein. This is what they might say to us. I don't believe this. Please give me some type of proof that Rasulullah, he cried for Imam Hussein. Because I think because you're followers of Arbaeen, you're going to have some type of remorse or you're going to cry for them automatically because of the love in which you have. But I don't believe that Rasulullah, he did it. This could be something that we could probably say, well, I don't know. Maybe I never heard Rasulullah or anything. Or maybe if someone come to our children and ask them this and they don't have an answer, how can we ask this? We could say, well, I see my parents cry. I go to the masjid, I see they cry. I go to these places, everybody cry. But wow, did Rasulullah cry? But not only that, but did he cry for Imam Hussein? Why are we crying for Imam Hussein if Rasulullah didn't do it? He asked himself, did he do it? One time, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam, he said that he went to visit Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi salam, and he saw Rasulullah crying. He said, oh Rasulullah, did someone aggravated you or someone angered you? Now, of course, we're going to have this type of question. We're going to ask, we go walk, see someone crying, what's wrong? Somebody angered you? Somebody... He said, no. Angel Jibril came and he said that they will kill Imam Hussein. They will slaughter Imam Hussein. We see that in this example that Rasulullah, one example that Rasulullah did cry on the fact that he knew that Imam Hussein was going to be martyred. But this is not the only time in which he cried. We see that one other time that he cried is that when Fatima had just had Imam Hussein and he started to go towards the baby and he kept on yelling out, oh Asma, please bring my son, please bring my son. And Asma said, oh, what did this child do? Why are you acting this way? He said, I just heard from Jibril that these people, the people after this, they're going to slaughter this baby and I do not want to upset Fatima because she is in labor. Remorse he was showing for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We see another incident like this. So is crying something that which Rasulullah did? Yes. Is crying for Imam Hussein is something that Rasulullah did? Yes. But did he do it on multiple occasions? Yes. Because we know as believers, Rasulullah did things on multiple occasions. Just like the example when Allah Jalla, He explains something in the Quran, He explains it to us in multiple times. Because as a human being, if you explain something to us once, we may not grasp it. But if you explain to us in multiple times, we will grasp this concept. Excuse me. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We will grasp this type of concept. But just say, for instance, we have said that all these hadiths, they're from us. And we're going to be biased. As sure, we're going to be biased. Our hadiths are going to say this. But what about the other school of thought? Do they have any riwayat which that said that Imam Hussein or Rasulullah cried for Imam Hussein? Yes. We find that they said one time the aunt of Rasulullah, Fadl, she went and she visited Rasulullah. They said that she placed Imam Hussein on the lap of Rasulullah. Then she said she turned away for a moment. And as she turned away, she turned back. We see that Rasulullah, was tearing. He was crying. She asked, what is the problem, Rasulullah? He said that they came to me and said that they are going to kill this son. She said, who? This son? He said, yes. He explained to her that, yes. Then he showed her the earth from Karbala. We find that so many instances in which that Rasulullah, he got the earth from Jibril and he smelt it and he started to have remorse and he started to cry because he started to reminisce or hear or remember what was going to happen to Imam Hussein in the future. So did he cry? Yes. So as followers of Rasulullah, we too cry for Imam Hussein because it is a sadness that affects our heart. And because it is a sorrow that affects our heart, the only way that we can show some remorse is through our tears and the cry for Imam Hussein. This is how we show our remorse. This is the way. Excuse me. I'm getting over something on my throat for all the traveling, so please pardon me. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We have so many people in which narrate from this that we even find hadith from his wife Aisha that one day she went to visit Rasulullah and she saw that Rasulullah, he was playing with Imam Hussein. He was making him laugh. He said, you are fond of this child. He said, how can I not be? He's the fruit of my eyes, the desire of my heart. But they will slaughter him after my death. Rasulullah, he explained what is going to happen to Imam Hussein and showing that his remorse to everyone. So no one cannot say, I did not see Rasulullah cry over Imam Hussein. They cannot say that. So when they see us cry, we are not making up an innovation. This is not an innovation for crying for Imam Hussein. This is what Rasulullah wanted us to do. Because if we do not cry for Imam Hussein, we find that we do not have that fire burning for the love and the, in the hatred for those who did that certain atrocity of Imam Hussein, that we find that the Shia would not be motivated to do anything and we allow people to come and take from us. Right? We don't allow these type of things as Shia because of we see how Imam Hussein, what he fought for. But then we go on and we start to think that, okay, we understand that, yes, you cry. But why do you have mourning ceremonies? Because a lot of times people want to question that what we do as though it's something that is an innovation, that is something that Rasulullah or Ahlul Bayt have not done, and that we just all of a sudden made this up. Like, oh, why do y'all gather and have ceremonies and mourn Imam Hussein? This is something that's, y'all made this up. Whereas we know that common knowledge that when someone passes on, we have ceremonies for them. Right? We have ceremonies. Someone passed away, we have ceremony. So why we should not have ceremonies for them? For those who died in Karbala. Should be something natural, right? Of course. But when we look at why we do it for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we have to go back that one time when the people came back from Ahad, yes. And Rasulullah saw the women folk, they was doing mourning sessions for those who got martyred. He said to them, why there is no women or men going mourning Hamza? Why nobody's showing this type of mourning ceremony for Hamza? Hamza Shuhada got mourned a long time before Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And when he seen this, he said, no, why are y'all not doing this? So they said that the women went to the house of Hamza Shuhada and started to do mourning ceremonies, and these ceremonies continued. Example. So when we do these ceremonies, we following a prophet of Allah. We following a prophet of Allah in something which he has told us to do. But wait a minute, this is all that he said? He just said that time? Because sometimes people, like I said previously, say, oh yeah, you just got one hadith. That could be anything. But we see that we have more proofs. There's more stuff in which we could put more familiarity and more, give us more, how can I say, proof in our heart and make us get more surety so we can have that haq. Right? Exactly. One time, Rasulullah was explaining to Fatima Zahra about what was going to happen to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He told her that these people are going to martyr your son. He said, Fatima, she started to cry. She said, when will this happen? She said, neither me, Rasulullah said, neither me nor you or Ali is going to be there. She started to cry even more. Because you know the love in which a woman has for her child is unconditional. And to know that she would not be there to help her son when he is in a time of need hurts even more. So we can imagine how the wailing in which Fatima Zahra had when she heard this information from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Then she asked a very important question. She said, so who is going to mourn my son? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, the women are going to mourn the women of Ahlul Bayt, and their men are going to mourn the men of Ahlul Bayt. They said, this will go on from generation to generation, and every year they will renew this. He said, then those of the men, Fatima, on the day of judgment, you will be those of the women, you will be the ones who give succession for them, and for the men, I will give succession for them. But that's not all. Then he goes on in this hadith and he said, and the one who cries for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he said, I will grab them by the hand and make them go to paradise. SubhanAllah. So we see that this is something that he said that has came true. Excuse me. Because as we sit and we hear about it, we are part of those generation after generation who every year we renew what we have heard about Karbala, and we pass it on to our children, and we instill the love of Imam Hussein in our children so that they can install the same love in their children, and we'll be a part of those generations and generations to come, as he has said in this riwayah, in this hadith. So we could be the ones that, for the women that Fatima Zahra can intercede for, and for the men, we could be of those who Rasulullah see for. And when we cry for Imam Hussein, we be of those who he grabs by the hand and forces us into paradise, or makes us into paradise. SubhanAllah. This is something in which we have to know that we are following the true way when we have these type of ceremonies and what we do in these ceremonies. That we should not feel ashamed or feel a way about doing it, thinking that this is just a cultural thing, when all actuality, no, this is a tradition from Rasulullah. And not only Rasulullah, how about Ahl Bayt? Is this something from those who came after? Was it just something that Rasulullah did? This is the question. Because some people would say, oh, this is just something that he said, and that's all. None of the Ahl Bayt, they did it. They're just picking up stuff and just doing it. Because people will say this. People will criticize. People will try to say this, thinking that what we're doing is not correct. Because our remorse for Ahl Bayt, our love for Ahl Bayt, because we do what Rasulullah said. He said for us to be kind to Ahl Bayt. So when you're kind to someone, you have to have the love to be kind to them. You cannot be kind without having some type of love in your heart. So we find that they said that when those who was the captives, when they was going to Kufa, the situation in Kufa was very crazy. Let's look at how it was. For instance, it was so harsh that they turned the people and had the people thinking that those who was in Karbala was coming to attack them in Kufa. So we see that when Ahl Bayt came there as captives, they changed how people thought because of their eloquent voices and their eloquent tones and lectures on how they spoke and how they told people what had happened in Karbala. They did so also in Shams. They did so much that they said that the people who ruled at that time, they started to do or accept mourning ceremonies because it had impacted all the people so much so that if they have not done this type of ceremony, that would have been problems. That would have been problems. By them telling what had happened in Karbala, it affects the heart of those who they tried to say that, oh, this did not happen. But then we go on a time of Imam Zain al-Abidin, and we know that Imam Zain al-Abidin, he was there. And we consider Imam Zain al-Abidin as one who cried the most. He cried when he used to see people eat. He used to cry when he see people drink. Just imagine that he is trying to explain what had happened to people in Karbala. He said, he sees someone drinking water. He would say, oh, you know that when my father and my family was in Karbala, they would not even let them drink water. He reminded people of what had happened so those ceremonies can continue. When he saw people and they was about to slaughter an animal, he said, what is permissible for you to do? Is it permissible for you to give this animal water before you slaughter it? Then he would say, when you slaughter this animal, do the knife have to be so sharp that it has to not affect the animal? Then he would go on, he would say, the knife in which they cut the throat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was so dull. Whereas you have to have a knife that is so sharp that you cannot hurt the animal. But yet they did this to Imam Hussein. These are the things in which he did to remind people so we should continue on this ceremony. that the knife went back and forth, and served the head of the imam in such a harsh way to show that this is not correct and put inside the hearts of those to know that we must cry for Imam Hussein. We must follow the sunnah of Rasulullah. We must be that generation after generation to remember what had happened, because they will tell you, oh, this is of the past. Do not remember it. Why you should remember it? It happened. Oh, it was back then. Let it go. If Arbaeen did not let it go, who are we to let it go? They did these things for us so we could continue to let people know about the atrocity in Karbala and to fuel the fire in the hearts of those who follow Arbaeen. This is to fuel the fire. We find that this ceremony kept on going even through the time of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, that he used to go and have people come recite Marsiyas, and he would then stay there. But we think, oh, this is the only time that they mourn Imam Hussein. We have to think that when they allowed Zainab and all of them to go back, they stopped at Karbala and they start to mourn Imam Hussein. They said that when the atrocity happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the first one who knew what happened was Salama. They said because Rasulullah gave her the sand and said when this sand becomes red, that they had slaughtered Imam Hussein. And they said they knew in Medina that the Imam was slaughtered because of the redness and the crying of Salama. And because of then they had mourning ceremonies for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So we see that these ceremonies, there was not something that we made up. They said that when they finally reached back to that of Medina, people like Benin and all the other people, they started to do more ceremonies of the martyrdom of those who lost their lives in Karbala. So we see that this is something that is a tradition that we must continue to do. We must continue to do. This is what we must continue to do. This is a natural reaction to cry and to mourn and to remember those who were there. Those who lost their lives, not to forget them. We cannot forget Imam Hussein. How can we forget what happened to Imam Hussein? How can we forget what happened? They want us to forget. No, we cannot forget. Oh. We think about if we forget, just imagine that we could reminisce in our mind and we think about the time when Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he was there and he wanted to get some water for Ali Asghar, and he go to his wife and he tell her that, oh, I want to get some water. I'm going to ask the troops to get some water. And as a mother, she take her child, she makes sure that he's nice and dressed with a mom and everything. So when he asks for water, that he be presentable to the people. How can we forget this? How can we forget that when he went to ask them, they did not pay attention to him. They did not want to give the imam water for a child. How can we forget that he placed the child on the ground and walked off and said, if you feel that I'm going to take from this water, I'm going to put the child down and walk away. How can we forget this? How can we forget how the tyrant told them, oh, please quiet this child, and they shot the arrow all the way through, and it went through the child into the chest of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. How can we forget this? How can we not cry and have remorse about this? How can we now think about how the imam is trying to figure how he could tell the mother of this child that is only 6 years old that this child is no longer with us? How can we forget that when he started to pace back and forth, he said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and he's going back and forth. How can he forget that he had to tell the mother about what was this? And they wonder why we cry. They wonder why we feel remorseful. They wonder why we have some type of ceremony to keep this alive, because this type of atrocity is something that should not be forgotten. No. If we allow this type of stuff to not be lived over and over, it will be in a book on the bottom shelf of a library, where someone one day may pick it up and say there was one time people, they used to be remorseful for those that had lost their lives at Karbala, but they no longer do it because they lost faith and they stopped crying for this person, and because of that, that fire in their heart was extinguished. And it was of something of the past. We have to be that generation after generation that continues to promote the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We have to be that. We have to be those. We have to live the atrocities in our minds and remember what had happened to him, what had happened to the family. What happened to the family? How can we not cry and feel remorseful for Imam Hussein? How we can't not feel a way and we think about how that someone he mounts, Imam Hussein, a person who knew Imam Hussein very well, how he grabs the Imam and how he severs the head of the Imam. How they take the head and they protest the head on the spit and walk down the street with it. How the reaction of even the non-Muslim that was in the court of Yazid the law said, if you do this to your own prophet's son who is close to you, what would you do to me? Because he explained to him that we have people that are descendants of our prophet and we still revere them. This is why we cry. This is why we have remorse. This is why we have ceremonies, so we will not forget the atrocity of this. To let it be reenacted year after year after year, as though it's a newfound battery that is placed inside of us and give us more energy to go forth and go out and do all the works in which Ahlul Bayt want us to do. But this is why we cry. This is why we mourn. This is why we have ceremonies for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And we can never forget. Never should we forget. We must continue to cry Imam Hussein. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa la afikus. Illa alladhina aminu wa aminu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Wa akhir da'wana walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa sallallahu Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin. Ya Hussein.
سکینہ ہائے زندان، ہائے سکینہ ہائے زندان، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، مر گئی پر نہ کبھی، مر گئی پر نہ کبھی ہاتھ ہٹے کانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، شام جاتے ہوئے ناکے سے گری یوں بچی، شام جاتے ہوئے ناکے سے گری یوں بچی، مشک غازی کی گری جیسے کٹے شانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ جواب دیں ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، چونک اٹھتی تھی مدینے میں یہ کہہ کر بانو، چونک اٹھتی تھی مدینے میں یہ کہہ کر بانو، کوئی آواز مجھے دیتا ہے ویرانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، کتنی بے دردی سے ظالم نے اتارے وہ گوہر، کتنی بے رحمی سے ظالم نے اتارے وہ گوہر، شین بیٹی کو جو پہنائے تھے ارمانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، مجھ کو کڑتے میں ہی دفنانا سکینہ نے کہا، مجھ کو کڑتے میں ہی دفنانا سکینہ نے کہا، مت کفن مانگنا اے بھائی مسلمانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، کوئی غیبت میں انہیں دیکھ کے خون روتا ہے، کوئی غیبت میں انہیں دیکھ کے خون روتا ہے، رستا رہتا ہے لہو آج بھی جن کانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر، سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر، ایک بچی نہیں جاتی ہے عزا خانوں سے، ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے، مر گئی پر نہ کبھی، مر گئی پر نہ کبھی ہاتھ ہٹے کانوں سے ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے، اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے، اتنے مسلمانوں سے۔ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین۔
آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، دریا سے دل حیدر کرار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، بازو جو کٹے دانتوں میں مشکیزہ دبایا، بازو جو کٹے دانتوں میں مشکیزہ دبایا، جب مشق چھدی پھر وہ حیادار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، ہر لاش پہ بھائی کا مددگار تھا غازی، ہر لاش پہ بھائی کا مددگار تھا غازی، بعد اس کے کوئی شہ کا مددگار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، جب تک وہ رہا چادر زینب کا محافظ، جب تک وہ رہا چادر زینب کا محافظ، خیمے کی طرف کوئی ستمگار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، بازو تھا جو شبیر کا بے بازو ہوا وہ، بازو تھا جو شبیر کا بے بازو ہوا وہ، بے دست وہ دست شہ ابرار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار، جس وقت تماچے ہے لگے بولی سکینہ، جس وقت تماچے ہے لگے بولی سکینہ، کیا مجھ پہ چچا جان تمہیں پیار نہ آیا، آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا، آیا ہے اور علمدار ہے مجھ کو یقین نیزے پہ غازی کو یہ غم تھا ہے مجھ کو یقین نیزے پہ غازی کو یہ غم تھا قبضے میں میرے شام کا بازار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا دریا سے دلے حیدر کرار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار 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 نہ آیا
یا حسین حسین اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں میں وارث تطہیر ہوں ناموس نبی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت اے شام کے لوگوں بازار سے دربار میں لے آئے ہو مجھ کو چاہوں تو جلا سکتی ہوں خود بو سے میں تم کو صابر کی بہن ہوں جو میں خاموش کھڑی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں اے شام کے لوگوں تم اپنے پیغمبر کو اگر دیکھنا چاہو نیزے پہ جو یہ سر ہے اسے غور سے دیکھو ہم شکل پیغمبر ہے یہ ہم شکل پیغمبر ہے یہ میں اس کی پھوپھی ہوں اے شام کے میں بنت علی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں میں زہرا کو بھی دربار میں تم نے تھا بلایا دربار میں بھی ہوں مگر فرق ہے اتنا پردے میں تھی وہ اور میں بے پردہ کھڑی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں اے شام ہونے لگی دربار میں جس وقت اذانیں ریحانی ادھر نام نبی گونجا فضا میں بی بی نے کہا فخر سے میں جیت گئی ہوں اچھا لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، میں وارث سے تطہیر ہوں، ناموس نبی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، صلوات و سلام آپ پر ہے فاطمہ زہرا، ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا، صلوات و سلام آپ پر ہے فاطمہ زہرا، ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا، کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر، کانوں سے اتارے گئے گوہر، زینب کی بچھینی ہے ردا فاطمہ زہرا، صلوات و سلام آپ پر فاطمہ زہرا، ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا، بار محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
متوجہ زیارت بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ السلام علیکم یا نبی اللہ یا رسول اللہ باعث اللہ، السلام علیکم یا علی امیر المومنین وقائد الغر المحجلین و امام المتقین، السلام علیکم یا فاطمہ الزہرا سیدۃ نساء العالمین، السلام علیکم یا خدیجہ الکبریٰ ام المومنین، السلام علیکم حسن المجتبیٰ، السلام علیکم حسین شہید بکربلا، السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین، السلام علیکم ائمۃ الہدیٰ علی ابن حسین زین العابدین و محمد ابن الباقر و جعفر ابن محمد الصادق و موسیٰ ابن جعفر الکاظم وعلی ابن موسیٰ الرضا، محمد ابن علی تقی الجواد وعلی ابن محمد ہادی النقی و حسن ابن علی ذکی العسکری، السلام علیکم مولانا صاحب عصر و زمان، الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان والشیطان، السلام علیکم خلیفۃ الرحمن یا امامنا و امام الانس والجان، عجل اللہ تعالیٰ فرجک وسهل تعالیٰ مخرجک وظہورک وجل من السارق وعوانک والمستشہدین بین یدیک، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، اللہم کن لولیک الحجۃ ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی ہذہ الساعہ وفی کل ساعہ ولییا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودلیلا وعینا حتی تسکنہ ارضک طوعا وتمتعہ فیہا طویلا برحمتک یا ارحم الراحمین، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہم۔ سورۃ مبارکۃ فاتحہ۔